Okay, so I promised you the next step. Here we go. We understand that this is what we call simplified order accumulation. Prices sell off in some way, get accumulated, then move higher. And the general rule I've given you thus far to think about and visually see, and hopefully you took some kind of notes on this, is that prices often, mainly, are being accumulated, moving higher, flushing out, accumulated or reaccumulated, moving higher, flushing out over and over and over again until there's nothing left to accumulate. Okay? Now, this idea, now taken to the next step, is what we call stages. Price action moves through stages. Okay? And the stages are literally accumulated, moves higher, flushes out. Accumulated or reaccumulated, move higher, flush out, etc., etc., etc. Over and over and over again until failure, true failure, for the purpose of repetition or worthlessness. Now, this visually is right here. Now, these are imperfect examples, as in I didn't draw everything perfectly. And you can label much more price action in this, but this is the general understanding. Again, taking you back to kind of the initial things that we taught, where prices move in demand creation, demand validity, demand creation. This is now moving to the next step, which is thinking in stages, thinking in accumulation. And you can see I kind of labeled it, right? You have overall price accumulation. There it is. Moved into price reaccumulation because prices moved higher, flushed out and paused, moved into new reaccumulation, flushed and paused into new accumulation, over and over and over again. And now what I can do is if I remove these, as I kind of put them behind price like this, right? This is just an example. It's imperfect, and we'll study this more as we keep going. This is a market, and again, you shouldn't know what market it is, but you might have been able to guess. But again, a reminder, you doesn't matter what time frame or market we trade, because again, we're trading context, or we're trading stories. We're not trading patterns. And this is something that you should know now because you've been working through the portal. So this is QQQ, US 100, and Q, NASDAQ, whatever you want to call it. And very simply, you have the first thought process behind what we call stages, or behind accumulation, where basically some kind of accumulation, here it is, occurs. That accumulation is then led into a move higher, followed by, in this case, a very small flush, which is just a price move back down, which we'll talk about later because there can be different types of flushes that you study, that you personally use, that you use in your trading. But there's some kind of flush. Price reaccumulates, moves higher, flushes in some way. In this case, a much bigger flush, flushes out, reaccumulates, moves higher, 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 flushes out, reaccumulates, but instead of continuing its given move, there's failure, and this becomes what you might call a worthless market. Okay, so again, you're now starting to see the same things you saw before, given a little bit more information. The fact that these demand validations that are happening, right, that are just kind of random now, where are the demand validations happening? How are they occurring? What are they doing? To now the next step, which is that these demand validations are versions of accumulation followed by a move, by flush outs, reaccumulations followed by a move over and over and over again, because it's a trend, until the trend inevitably fails, because it will eventually fail. Every trend does. And for that reason, right, you're led to what you see here, which is some version of, if you wanted to label it, accumulation, reaccumulation, 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 blah, 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 failure, right? And then failure down. And again, this is an imperfect example. But that leads us to the next step, which is thinking in stages. So the first step of understanding everything that's going on and understanding simplified order accumulation and taking to the next step is that this exact same combination leads to what we call stages in the market. And stages are what I've basically boiled down to the phases that a market moves through when it's worthwhile. So again, not a worthless market. Sitting there trying to pinpoint and label all the things happening in a market that's not worth trading is useless. Because the reality is, we want to be there for the markets that make sense to trade at the end of the day. That's all we're really doing. So we really want to be there for when the two main stages are occurring. And that's simply a stage 1 and a stage 2. That's it. And simplified into the most basic of explanations, at its simplest for the bullish side, because we're learning on the bullish side right now, but remember the bearish side is just going to be everything flip. That's it. Stage 1 is simply price moving sideways, also known as accumulating. Stage 2 for a bullish side is price moving higher. That's it. Nothing more. And an example or a cycle of accumulation or of good action or a good market is simply a clean stage 1, a clean stage 2, a clean stage 1, a clean stage 2, a clean stage 1, a clean stage 2, over and over and over again until failure. Right? So taking this, and again, we're going to go over more examples in 1 second, but taking this to its kind of next simple step, you have a stage 1 of some sort. Let me actually make this fatter. A stage 1 of some sort, which is that accumulation, which on some time frame is some kind of down move and made somehow, right? Followed by an up move. Okay? Followed by an up move, demand validation. Followed by some kind of new stage 1, some sideways action, followed by some kind of stage 2 up move, followed by some kind of stage 1 sideways move, accumulation move, followed by some kind of stage 2 upwards move. Now within, before I do that actually, followed by some kind of stage 1 move, followed by some kind of stage 2 move, followed by some kind of stage 1 move, followed by some kind of failure. Right? And at that point, the stages don't really become relevant unless you're starting to look at them on the bearish side. But right now, this is a very basic, once again, diagram of stages explained. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And what you might notice is they're not perfect, and we're going to talk about that in 1 second. We're going to get into a deeper version of that. What you also might notice is I didn't really draw the 1, 2s of every label that I put on here. And that's because just like every concept you've learned thus far, structural movements, MBs, the way they all form, you similarly have fractals happening, which is going to lead you to your next understanding of how flush outs, right, these down moves can be different based on the type of trader you are or the kind of moves you want to get involved in. So again, if I wanted to, I can go inside of here and say something like, this was a mini stage 1, followed by this stage 2, followed by this mini stage 1, where it flushed out to accumulate, followed by stage 2, followed by a mini stage 1, followed by a stage 2, followed by a mini stage 1, that led to, in this case, failure, if you want to call it that, or, as you've already learned, some kind of larger structural correction as part of a bigger move, to go back into some kind of stage 1, into stage 2, stage 1 into stage 2, stage 1 into stage 2, stage 1 into stage 2. So there's fractals within fractals of this exact same concept happening. And again, it's another way to label and understand demand zone validations, demand creation, MB creation. So simply, this leads to your first instance of thinking in stages, right? Stages are the phases of the market. And there's really only 2 phases that matter, the 1 and then the 2. And simply, price moves higher, price moves sideways, and a good action is clean stage 1 and clean stage 2. And here's again that same example. Stage 1, which is that sideways move, into some stage 2. And again, why do we teach this way or why do we start thinking this way? Well, because the market's not perfect. And again, we don't start creating just down moves followed by beautiful up moves on any time frame because they all happen within different times due to how price action works. So this is where you kind of stretch the understanding of supply and demand creation because guess what? A down move followed by an up move, right? Just like this one here. So this is where we kind of start to shatter borders or understandings, right? Is the reality is this down move could be a perfect down move, as we like to say, on a 1 hour chart. But this up move might not be a perfect up move on a 1 hour, but might be a perfect up move on a 6 hour or on a, let's say, 5 minute, right? It could be a longer term 1 hour and a faster 5 minutes. So basically this drawn as price action or as a new recreation of the candles would be something that took an hour and then something that might have taken 5 minutes, right? To make it proportional, right? So this would be 60 minutes of time and this might have been 5 minutes of time But simplified is a down move of some time frame followed by the up move of some time frame, creating that demand. And again, we can't sit around randomly trying to find the correct candle that's making the true demand of the true MB or anything like that. It doesn't make any sense, right? So we start to understand that price moves more so along these lines right here, where it takes time. And this is your first instance of a stage 1 followed by some kind of stage 2. A move sideways that accumulates, creates accumulation, because within here, right, you had initial sellers come in, sellers might have come in, buyers started stepping in, sellers came in, buyers stopped in to accumulate, maybe sellers came in big time to make that low, buyers started coming in to accumulate them, come down, maybe start making some MBs in here, and all of a sudden, right, price makes a move to whatever, high, right, to then repeat this process again, to flush out, to go sideways, accumulate, and maybe this one's a faster accumulation than goes, right? This is why you have shorter term and longer term structures as well as stages. But this is the basic understanding, or the first step of stages right here, kind of simplified, where it's not always perfect, right? And I'm going to talk more about perfection in a second, but this is what a true market looks like. And this is taking you from the first understanding of just basic demand validation to the next step, which is that you have multiple of these things happening over and over and over again. And this is what's creating stage 1s and stage 2s to make actual moves. Now we're going to get into deeper stages in the next video, so we don't go too overboard right now. I'll see you all in the next one.